everyone, I'm Yaz, and I'm here to let you know about some things coming soon and 4 ways for you to be part of our church community. The first way is through Next Steps. If you're new or newer here, Next Steps is our process to help you become part of the community here at the house. We have 3 steps through our Next Steps process. Step 1 is our open house lunch, and that's a time for you to have lunch with some of our team. Step 2 is Mission and Values, where we go over the mission, vision, and values and where we're going as a church community. And finally, Step 3, the house is my home. Here you get to officially make the house your home church. The second way is through groups. Groups exist to help you grow and develop deeper community here at the house. Connect Group Season 2 is in process. There is still time to join us. You can go ahead and find a group online under our groups page. There you will find a variety of groups that you can sign up for. Don't skip a beat in building deeper community here at the house. The third way is through events. Events are our one-time experience to help inspire and encourage our church community. This summer, starting June 23rd, our kids ministry is putting on Summer of Fun, where every Sunday will be filled with something different, special, and exciting. To highlight a few, we are having an ice cream social Sunday, capture the flag, and pajama movie and popcorn Sunday. So much for your kids. Get your kids excited by going online and seeing all the details under our Coming Soon page. The fourth way is through classes. Classes exist to help you learn biblical principles to grow in your faith. If you would love to grow in your understanding of the Bible, we would love to encourage you to join us. Go ahead and register online under our Coming Soon page. That's all for today. Now let's go to our message.
Hey, welcome to the house. My name is Wes. I'm the lead pastor here, and we're so glad that you're with us today. Hey, big shout out. Those of you you've been liking, you've been subscribing, you are a superstar. Thank you so much. We've been adding new friends to the channel every week. So man, I'm just glad you're here. You could be watching any other channel. You could be watching some big church in some great city or some other teaching somewhere else, but you're here with us, and it just means a lot. So thank you so much for that. Thanks for joining. Thanks for liking and subscribing, like I mentioned. And thanks for sharing with friends. It really does help us get the message of Jesus, about which we are so passionate about. If you are here in LA, we would love to invite you to a service. Even if you're outside of LA, obviously we'd invite you as well. But especially if you're here in Los Angeles County, come on out to a service. You would fit in so great here, and God's doing something so special at this church. So check out thehousela.org for service time, directions, and also if you want to learn more about who we are as a church, or if you'd like to give, if this teaching has been a blessing to you, thank you so much for joining us in that journey of generosity. You can check out thehousela.org for that as well. Today, we are finalizing. This is the last one, finalizing the last message in the series on mother wisdom, a study in the book of Proverbs. And specifically today, we're talking about wisdom and sex. Wisdom and sex. And this is a really important topic because the world that we are facing today is becoming more increasingly sexualized. So instead of just saying no, like back, I'm 42. So back in the day, like Nancy Reagan, went out there and told the kids, hey, when someone offers you drugs, just say no. That's probably great advice for the 80s, right? Great advice. Just say no. And there's a big campaign out there for all the drugs. Just say no. Just say no. Well, we've been taking that same advice for years and years. And sometimes it's like, well, what do I do about this? And what do I do about that? The same goes for sex and sexuality today. Instead of just saying, just say no, what do I say? How do I respond? How do I react? Because in our world today, sex and sexuality is often described, if you look at a lot of the mainstream stuff out there, I think of like James Bond. And that is like the picture of manliness, masculinity, someone that can drink a cocktail or two, shaken, not stirred, could drink without getting drunk, could just take this woman and that woman and just has a high body count and women that can get any man that they want. That is like our world's version of sex and sexuality. We've taken that as like sex with what we would call sex without consequences. Sex always has consequences, whether good or bad. So let's look at what the Bible says. Let's look at what wisdom says about sex. Now, it's important to note that wisdom calls. Talked about this a little bit early on in week number 1 in this series about wisdom and wisdom calling. It says this, Proverbs 1 verse 20, wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries aloud in the public squares. Like she's calling people to herself. Wisdom is like a woman in the streets, like a street vendor. Like, hey, come here. If you've ever been to the promenade here in Santa Monica, there's always something. Hey, come here, come here. Let me just wash your shoes. Hey, have you seen this new thing? Or there's a dog that does flips, you know, and it does a flip. They're always calling you in. Wisdom is calling you in. Verse number 23 says this, come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and I will make you wise. Proverbs 8:1 says, listen as wisdom calls out. Hear as understanding raises her voice. Wisdom calls, but so does sin. See, wisdom is a street vendor on this side, but sin is also a street vendor on this side, and both of them are calling for you. So it's not just about, oh, just say no. Both of them are calling and vying for your attention. Proverbs 7 verse 10 says this, the woman approached him. It describes like sin and sinful sexuality. The woman approached him seductively dressed and sly of heart. She was the brash, rebellious type, never content to stay at home. She is often in the streets and markets, soliciting at every corner. Sin is not just waiting for you. I want to make this very clear. Sin is not just waiting behind some closed door for you. Sin is actually out trying to get you. Driving around here in LA, I've got 2 young kids, and I'm constantly diverting their attention. There's always some billboard or bus bench ad. There's always something that is either scary or it's sensual or it's outright sexual, whatever. Hey, kids, look over there. Hey, kids, look over there. Why? Because sinful sexuality is literally chasing and trying to grab a hold of you. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to say no. How will you respond when wisdom is on one side calling for you and sin and sinful sexuality is calling on the other? Here's the good news. Both are calling. And the question is, who are you going to answer? The good news is this, wisdom can protect you from sexual sin. Let me say that again. Wisdom can protect you from sexual sin. Oftentimes in our society, when we talk about protect yourself, we're talking about wearing a contraceptive. But what about wisdom protecting you from even being near it? Proverbs 7, verse 4 and 5 says this, love wisdom like a sister. Make insight a beloved member of your family. Let them protect you from an affair with an immoral woman, from even listening flat to the flattery of a promiscuous woman. So remember, back in the day, Nancy Reagan, just say no. God bless her. Wisdom says that don't even listen. It's not just about the no. Oh, you're listening and your only job is to say no. Wisdom says don't even be around that so that it can even get in your ear. It can get in your eyes or it can get in your heart. It's not just purity culture that protects you. It's also wisdom. Wisdom is like a shield that protects you. Wisdom says things like this. Do not even go near immorality. Do not even go near it. See, what ends up happening is this, is as humans, we try to get as close as we can to the line without sinning, and we're setting ourselves up, or you're setting yourself up to lose. It's like if you had a problem with gambling and you say, I'm not gonna go gamble. I'm just gonna walk through the casino lobby. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna walk through, where they're playing Texas Hold'em. I'm just gonna walk by, I found some money the other day. And all of a sudden it's like you're at the table, you're gambling. It's like, how did you get here? Well, you went near. Wisdom protects you from even going near. Proverbs 5:8 says this, stay away from her. Now, some of you, when I say that, you already know who the her is in your world, or you know who the him is in your world. Wisdom says, just delete his number. Just stay away. It says, don't go near the door of her house. So it's not just about like, don't say, like, just say no. It's literally saying, don't even go near. Don't drive in that neighborhood. Don't go to the same grocery store. Don't put yourself in an environment where sin is readily accessible to you. Proverbs 7:7-9 says this, I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path right by her house. It was twilight in the evening as deep darkness fell. Wrong place plus wrong time equals wrong results. You have to eliminate that thought of, hey, let's just see what happens. You already know what happens. Let me just see if this is still his number. Let me just see if this is still her number. Let me just, let me just check out what's going on in their world on social media. Let me just see if they're at home. Let me just connect up with them. Let me just talk to them about something about business, not even sexual. And what happens is, as you go closer and closer and closer, you're making sin and sexual sin that much more readily accessible to you. Wisdom says things like this. Instead of just saying no, if you're married, it says it's to be intoxicated by your spouse only. Now, this may be a little bit R-rated, but it's in the Bible, so I'm going to read it. Proverbs 5:18-21. Some of you got really excited as soon as I said it's some R-rated stuff. It says this, Proverbs says this, the book of wisdom, let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love, like be intoxicated with your spouse. Love your spouse. Enjoy your spouse. And he says, why be captivated, my son, by an immoral woman? Or fondle the breasts of a promiscuous woman? The Lord clearly sees what a man does, examining every path that he takes. Some people, when they think about sex and sexuality, they think about just sex is bad. No, sex happened before the fall. Adam and Eve in the garden, God put the original man and woman in a garden alone, naked. And he goes, this is paradise. Now, they messed it up. They committed sin and sin into the earth, but sex and being captivated by your wife and by wives by your husband, that's a part of the original plan of God. Sex happened before the fall, and God, in fact, actually called it very good. He put all of creation together, and he sees man and he sees woman. They're together. God goes, this is actually very good. Genesis 1:31, then God looked over all that he had made, and he saw that it was very good. Sex in the context of marriage, God calls it very good. So it's not just about just saying no. It's actually like, don't even go near. And in fact, if you're married, just be captivated by your spouse and your spouse alone. That word captivated there, it means to be like enraptured, led away, drawn away, magnetized. You should be captivated by your spouse. Don't focus on the things. This is how you be repelled by your spouse. Just focus on the things that they're not good at. And instantly you'll find yourself being repelled. And as you're pushing away from your spouse, you'll wonder, why am I attracted somewhere else? It's because you're repelling yourself. Rather focus in on the things that you're magnetized with your spouse. Tell yourself and tell them as well. The same Hebrew word there, captivated, in verse 20, is to warn you against being magnetized by another woman. So you were meant to be magnetized and captivated by your spouse. And if you're not magnetized and captivated by your spouse, you are that much more easily to be prey, to be magnetized and captivated by immorality. You will be captivated by someone, and that someone should be your spouse. Sin finds all sorts of ways to lure you closer and closer to sin, but wisdom says things like this. Don't be at his house late at night. Okay, if you're single, let me just help you out. Don't be at someone's house late at night. We're just watching a movie. Hey, whatever that time, you set a time for yourself at 11 o'clock, 11 p.m. At 10 p.m., I'm out. There used to be a saying when I was single and young, they said, nothing good happens after midnight. Okay. They're like, if you're out, you're young or you're single and you're hanging out with someone one-on-one, it's like, hey, set yourself up for success. Wisdom says things like, don't be at his house alone late at night. Don't be at her house alone late at night. Wisdom says things like this, avoid that after work outing. Like, hey, don't go, hey, you work late, avoid that late after work outing. It's just going to be you and him or you and her. Just avoid that. Wisdom says things like, you know what? I'm here in this setting, no drinks tonight. Why? Because just drinks and having those, it kind of it eliminates some of the positive and wise thinking that you would have in your life. Wisdom says things like this: if you're married, include your spouse in that text to that other person. So you're not creating this kind of communication outside of that trust. Wisdom says other things like, you know what? It's time to call it a night. Sometimes the things like purity and romance are merely just a matter, not of feelings and emotions and soundtracks, but purity and romance are actually a matter of wisdom. The results of an unwise sexuality are this: it robs you of your life and it leaves you in a pit. If you're absent of wisdom when it comes to sex and sexuality, you know what I'm talking about. It robs you of life. It may have a momentary feeling of bliss, but it will rob you. In the end, it will rob you of life, and it leaves you in a pit. Proverbs 7:22-23 says this about this young man who's going after this seductive woman. It says this: he follows her once like an ox going to the slaughter. That's the description of someone going in the way of sexual sin. Now remember, wisdom is calling, but so is sin and sexual sin. They are both calling. And when that young man goes that way of sexual sin, the Bible describes it as like an ox, something that's supposed to be strong, something that's meant for great things, and is going straight to a slaughterhouse. The result of wise sexuality within marriage is this: trust, help, and mutual enrichment. Trust, help, and mutual enrichment. So the question you have to ask yourself is, which one do I want? Do I want trust, health, and mutual enrichment? Or do I want to feel like my soul is being slaughtered? Proverbs 31:10-16, it says this. We had read this last week as well. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She is more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust in her, and she will greatly enrich his life. There's that enriching there. She'll bring him good and not harm all the days of her life. She finds wool and flax and busily spends it. She's like a merchant ship. She's bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn. She prepares breakfast. She goes to inspect a field and she buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Wisdom can help you have a good and successful marriage. Not a perfect one, but a good and successful marriage. And if you're single, wisdom will help keep you from those things that will slaughter your soul. For this series and for today, I want to end by praying for the marriages and especially for the single people as well who are watching this going, we want to be the people who do relationships really well. So if you're married and you're with your spouse, I want you to just grab their hand right next to you. And I'm going to pray for the married people first, and then I'm going to pray for the single people second. So married people will grab the hand of your spouse right next to you. Jesus, I thank you for every single husband and wife watching this right now. Thank you, God, that you love them and you love their marriage. And I'm praying, God, for the grace of God over them. I'm praying, God, that they would honor, that the husband would honor his wife, that he'd be magnetized to his wife, that the woman would love and honor her husband and be magnetized towards her husband, that they'd be drawn towards one another, that their sex would be holy, that their relationship would be holy, that their connection would be holy. And God, that you would help them. And where there's areas where there's been hurt, or mistrust or abuse of trust, God, I'm praying that you would help them to find healing in their soul for that they would love one another well and enrich one another well. Now, if you're single, put your hand on your heart. I'm going to pray for you. God, I thank you for every person who's single watching this, God, that you would help them with the wisdom of God to do relationships well. You're going to keep them from immorality that's going to rob them and steal from them and slaughter their soul. God, that there's some young men and young women who are watching this, some older men and older women who are watching this, and you've created them to be a force for your kingdom. You've created them to be like that ox that can do great things for God. And I'm praying, God, that they would not be led away to slaughter by sinful sexual immorality, but instead that they would follow you. Jesus, I thank you that you love them, you are for them, you're not trying to keep stuff from them, and that you have a plan for their life. I'm praying that they would be magnetized towards the call of God in their life. They say, I will serve God, and I'm going to respond to God. And at the right time, God, I'm praying that you're going to bring them that husband or that wife, God, that they're praying for right now. And I'm just going to agree with that. I feel that right now. God, they're praying for a husband. She's praying for a husband. He's praying for a wife. And I'm praying, God, that you would bring them together at the perfect time. Maybe it's at a worship night where they're both lifting their hands and they just see each other and say, man, she worships God, and she's looking over at him and he worships God. And maybe they're serving on a team together at their church, or maybe even here at the house. God, I'm praying that your community would be a healthy community that does wisdom well and that does sex and sexuality well. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, friends, thank you so much. I realize that, especially in a topic like this, I can't get to everything, especially on a short day like this. And when we do this message live and in person, there's a little bit more time. I know I went a little bit long here, but we have a little bit more time where we can kind of just didactically go through some of these points. But also, you can have someone to talk to. There's a prayer team. There's connect groups and leaders that can pray and actually discuss through some of the questions that you may have. I want to invite you to join us for Sunday morning here at the house. We're right here in Los Angeles. We'll throw the address for you up on the bottom of the screen. Or you can check out thehousela.org for service time and directions. But you need people around you who are going to encourage you as you go on this walk with the Lord as well. And we would be honored to be that community that does that with you. So check out thehousela.org. And again, big thank you to those of you who've joined with us in this journey of generosity. We're so grateful. If you're able to join us in that journey as well, we would be so grateful for your help. Hey, can't wait as next week we start up this brand new series for the month of June. You will not want to miss it. God bless. And we'll see you back soon here at the house.
Come show your glory. Come